Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Confessions of an Autism Mom. I am Amanda, and this week I have another amazing mom. Her name is Susie, and she is going to talk with us about her story as an autism mom, and she has other kids that fit up under the neurodivergent umbrella. So we'll get to chat with her for an hour today and get to know her and, of course, get her advice and encouragement. Make sure you all like, share, subscribe this video. If you are listening on Spotify, make sure you share this with someone that you think may need it. Because in the autism community, as you know, we need to spread the word as far as helping each other and making sure everyone feels comfortable and not alone. How are you today, Susie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you for coming on and share your story with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So let's go ahead and let's hop right on in today's episode. And you sharing your journey with us. Can you start off in telling us about each one of your kids and your daughter that has autism?
Yeah, sure. So I have three children, and currently my oldest is 20, and he was diagnosed with ADD when he was younger. And then my middle child, he's almost 8, and we didn't realize it at the time, but he struggled with sensory processing disorder. We actually didn't really come to that until after my daughter was diagnosed. So my daughter, she's 5 and 5.5, I guess, and she was diagnosed with autism when she was 22 months old. So after her diagnosis was kind of when we started realizing my son's sensory processing disorder. That was more like he struggled with sounds, loud sounds. He also was deathly afraid of elevators, escalators, and I say afraid, but I guess maybe that's not even what it really was. To him, it was, he just couldn't handle anything, stairs, even stuff like that. He got car sick really easily. So we realized, we were like, why are all of these things an issue for him? And once my daughter came around and was diagnosed with autism, we kind of started seeing the relation between those. And so that was when we kind of started to recognize that. So my daughter, actually, like early on in her diagnosis, it was about 18 months when we started to notice the signs for her. And it was, the number one thing was her not talking, of course, and like not recognizing her name. And I kind of just didn't really think too much about it. I just was like, oh, okay, and went to her 18-month checkup. And it was literally like that day when it kind of all came about. And the doctor never said the word autism, but he was just, he asked, like if there was anything in particular we were worried about. And I said mostly like her speech. And so he said, well, let's get her signed up with Nevada Early Intervention Services. And that was where he said, that's where we'll start to see if we can get her into speech and, occupational therapy and see if they can work with her. And then he said, let's just go from there. So I said, okay. But he said, there's one thing I want to have you fill out before you leave the office. And just want to have it for her folder, just so I have it on file. I said, okay. So he said, just fill it out, leave it here. So I started filling it out, not even knowing what it was, just asking me all kinds of questions like, does your child point? Does your child ask for, like, not ask, but I forget the wordings on all of the questions. But basically, like, if they request things, if they look in the direction that you're pointing, if they give you eye contact. It was all of these things. And it was like, even like as simple as like stacking blocks was a question, I think. And I thought to myself, why are they asking these things, But then I realized so many things that she wasn't doing, and she was checking off on a lot of them. So I thought, okay, this must be something. And so he called right away when I like right after I left the appointment, and he said, I didn't realize that there was this many things that she was checking off on. And he was like, but let's just continue with Nevada Early Intervention Services and see what they say after her assessment. So after I got off the phone with him, I told my husband how the doctor's appointment went, and he was like, well, what kinds of questions? What was it about? And so as I researched and found out that it was the MCHAT screening for autism, and the doctor never said autism, which is fine. I think he maybe just didn't want to alarm us, and maybe just thought once she went to Nevada Early Intervention, then things would progress from there. And so I just started doing all the research I could on autism and signs and, all of that, just to see if that was possibly our situation. And it was almost like instantly, I just thought, like, she checks off on all of these things, so this must be it. So I literally just kind of stepped into action right away and called to get her an appointment for diagnosis. And that was a 4-month wait. And so while we waited, I just did all the research I could, read up on it, tried to just start even doing things with her at home, working with her one-on-one, buying learning toys, all the things. And even the speech and all the therapists came from Nevada Early Intervention, and that was like all in-home services. That's how it works here. That's how it works here. So they came in home to work with me and help me on things that I could do with her one-on-one. And we just kind of went from there. And after her diagnosis, then I literally just kept going and bought every book I could find, just did everything I could to help her in any way, so.
And I want to say, I really loved how the doctor handled the situation. He was very gentle, and I really liked that, because when we got our diagnosis, it was, well, I think he has autism, and then she gave us like a bunch of paperwork to read. And I thought that was kind of like, that's not how you tell a family. So the doctor, I really loved how he eased that on you. And it's kind of like he wanted to make sure before he just gave you that diagnosis. So I really commend him for that and that experience. How did you feel once, you received everything and the thought of autism, your feelings?
So I think for us, or for me especially, my husband and I, we both really wanted my daughter to get the diagnosis of autism, because we pretty much knew that's what it was. And in order for her to get the help and the assistance that she needed, we knew that was very important. So we wrote down everything when we went to that doctor's appointment. We made sure that every little thing that we thought would help for them to really see and understand, because we also thought, from this short appointment, how are they going to know? There was no really preparation on what to expect at this doctor's appointment. So we kind of just went in let's just give them all the info that we can. So after that appointment, the doctor basically was like, yes, she definitely has autism. They never gave us a level of what she was on, which I know some families get that, where it's like level 1, level 2, level 3. We never got that. It was just she has autism. She's on the spectrum. That was a different doctor. And so they kind of give, that was it. Right. And so we almost felt a little lost, but also relieved, because we were like, okay, well, now we don't really know what else to do. And there were certain things that she was doing, this leg crossing thing. She still kind of does it now, but back then when she was younger, it was like she twisted her legs in a way where she was doing splits like the opposite way of what you would think. It's like you can't even describe it. But it was like standing on her ankles practically, because her legs would be crossed like this way, and so she'd be standing on her ankles, but she's almost like clenching her thighs at the same time. And so that we realized was one of her stimming things. And so he wanted to make sure that she got evaluated by, I think it was like the neurologist. They wanted to make sure that maybe she wasn't having any kind of seizures or, anything like that. And so I remember we had all these appointments to make, and we did hearing tests. So she got her ears checked, which she ended up having to get tubes put in her ears. She only had like water in one of them, but the doctor said if there's speech delay, then I would say just go ahead and get the tubes in her ears. It'll just make sure that she can hear you and that that's not a reason why she has speech delay. And so we want to, give her all the best, basically options. And so we had surgery for that. We saw the neurologist. They said everything was fine. So there was just a lot in the beginning to, so it felt a little overwhelming, but like I said, also relief at the same time, because we knew this was what we needed in order for her to be able to progress and get any kind of services that she needed to just to help her, and I never wanted to feel like denial. And so I feel like I never went through that stage of denial, and neither did my husband. That which I think was very beneficial for my daughter, because I think unfortunately sometimes when we do get stuck in that denial stage, that hurts your child more than anything, because the earlier you help them, the better. And so that was one thing. And I think for me, I was just like mom mode, and I got to do what I got to do for my baby. And I think my husband struggled a little bit more with, like the guilt and the, what did we do wrong, or what, like he was like, was there something, was it because you were working in the casino and there was smoke while you were pregnant, or just all the things, right, that he would just stress about constantly. And I finally just looked at him one day and I was like, honey, what is that doing us? Like, the question of what caused this, or where, what is that doing for us, and then what is that doing for her? Nothing. Like, what we need to know is, this is her, how can we help her, what do we got to do, and he just looked at me and he was like, how are you even? And I was like, I don't know, it's just the mom in me that I'm like, we just got to do what we got to do, right? Yeah. That's what moms do. We find a way, and we
gotta find a way. That's how we are. It's like we find a solution, we get right to it.
Yeah, exactly. We don't ask any questions, we just do it, and it's funny because I think about it now and I'm like, I didn't know anything, right? But just like when I had my first child, I didn't know anything. I just was like, I'm a mom, I'm gonna, and so as things happened, we learn and we progress. Yeah. And it's maybe we trip along the way. Maybe we don't always, have it right, but we just do the best we can, Yeah. So
after she received the tubes, did you see an improvement in her speech?
No.
Is she still nonverbal?
She has limited language now, but she didn't start. So she had her tubes. I feel like, I'm trying to remember when that surgery was, because she was diagnosed at 22 months and she had her tubes put in. I feel like it was by the time she was 3. I can't even remember, but maybe even before 3. And so I didn't really notice anything. And she never like really had ear infections or complained of, ear pain or any of that. It was just when we went, she was like, there is some fluid and, I see it in one, I don't see it in the other. Let's just put tubes in both just to be safe. And so I feel obviously she needed it, right? But then I'm like, and the part with me, I guess it's kind of funny because I forget about this sometimes, when she had her tubes and I was like, well, if she starts talking, then she's not autistic, and it was one of those things that I would always just be like, well, if she does this, then maybe it doesn't mean she has autism, Right. And then I realized no, that's not the way it works. You know, it was just, I don't know how long it took me to kind of like get out of that and know, like, it doesn't matter what we progress in, like, this is
What it
it, you know? I think it was just that thought of, well, if she talks, then it's not autism, you know? So that took me a little while to learn and kind of
Yeah.
get past that, you know, but the tubes I didn't notice, because she didn't really say, she, her first word she said was up, and then it was like we heard it for a month, and it wasn't like she wanted picked up. It was just a word. I think it was just a sound that she was able to get out, and
Okay.
so she just up, 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 you know, and it was just like constant. And then all of a sudden it was gone. Never heard it again, and never heard any other words, and barely any babbling. You know, it was just she. You know, she the one thing you heard a lot of was crying. You know, there was a lot of crying and a lot of whining. And so that was where we struggled, because we're not getting any speech. We're not getting any, you know, it's like the pointing, she wouldn't point to what she wanted. It was just played the guessing game. And if she didn't cry, then okay, I think she wants this because she's not crying, you know. And so when she finally started really talking was not until she was 5, which her birthday in September of last year. So she just has gotten some words. She is doing great right now. So I would say we're still limited language, but she's learning, and ABA has really like been her thriving moments, because she was in pre-K from the time she was 3. So like after Nevada early intervention, they transitioned to, you can put them in ABA, or you can go to the
Pre-K.
I forget what, the pre-K, and I think they called it
pre-K. They call it that here in Georgia.
I think it's like through Child Find is what it was. So that was how you went through it. And so she qualified for that right away. So on her 3rd birthday, she started that, and she loved it at first. And we had a great teacher the first year, and she was so sweet with her. And, you know, my daughter never went anywhere because it was, you know, COVID times, and we were at home all the time. And, you know, so no daycare, no nothing. It was just either my oldest son or, you know, my husband or myself. So that was hard. But when she started that, she loved it and she thrived with that. But then all of a sudden, so she was on her 3rd year, which was this last school year. And we started noticing she really was not enjoying school. And there was a lot of tantrums, a lot of crying, a lot of, you said the word school and she would just scream. And, and so I was like, what happened? And it was like, it seemed like she liked her teacher, and she would say that she would cry maybe a little bit in the morning, but then after that she would be fine. So I don't really know what it was, but once a spot in ABA finally opened up for her, which was just this year, so like just a few months ago. So then we just transitioned her to full-time ABA and took her out of school. And then we honestly, once we saw her thriving in ABA and doing so well, and it's perfect because it's right down the street from us. So it takes us 2 minutes to get there. You know, most of them are clear across town. So we got really lucky on that. And we actually come to find out it was a friend of a friend, somebody that we used to know, that we used to see, who owns this ABA center. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in years. And so it was just kind of like, okay, I think she's in good hands, you know? And so that felt good. And she started there, and she's just been so happy about it. And they've worked, like the first things they worked with her on was her, you know, I want, and then finishing her sentence with what she wants. And she started she expresses what she wants now. And
I'm glad to hear that.
So it's so nice. But I mean, we still struggle a little bit, you know, and sometimes she will whine or cry, and we have to be like, hey, you know, no crying, just what do you want? You know, what do you need? So the language is still limited, but I'm so happy
with what you have.
Yes.
So let's talk your other two kids, if you don't mind, because that's
Yeah.
up under the neurodivergent umbrella. ADD. I don't know much about ADD. I hear more so, and I have ADHD. So, can you let us know about that and the different signs of ADD?
So my understanding, which I could be wrong, but when so he my oldest always struggled with school. It was always hard for him. He wasn't really like bouncing off the walls, like couldn't control himself. It was just he really struggled with focusing on certain things. You give him a task, it was like he really couldn't focus on it or do it. It was like he would end up not completing things, do something else. He also would get to the point where, finishing assignments was hard for him. And so we just kind of, I remember, you have to forgive me because this was years ago, but in school, it just kind of being a thing where the teachers were like, really pressuring me on like getting him tested, and it was almost like they never said medication, but it was almost like that was what they were. He's definitely probably has ADD or ADHD, and I honestly don't exactly know the complete difference between the two, but they insisted on getting him tested, and it was like they were trying to push on, get him medication so that he, is getting his stuff done. Okay. So we got him tested, and I never once put him on medication because I was like, my kid, it wasn't like he was so uncontrollable that I couldn't handle him. He just, when it came to school, he just couldn't focus his brain, and he'd be all over the place. And so what I did was just worked on sticking with his IEP and trying to extend his time for his assignments and do everything that I could to help him as far as that went. And so he struggled, but it was easier that he knew he wasn't stressed on having to turn assignments in. So the part that I probably struggled with the most for him was when he entered high school, and it was like I can't really help him anymore. And so I got him tutors, and we worked with that a lot. And mind you, now this is the same time with my daughter's now born, and she's young, and we're going through COVID as well. And so all of that played a part in it. And my middle child being, like can't even walk up the stairs without, being terrified. And so with my older son, the part that we really struggled with was when he entered high school, because it was the end of his freshman year when COVID hit. Then it turned more into the mental health issues for him. And I know a lot of kids that struggled with the mental health during like COVID times.
Yeah.
And I look back now, and I almost feel like part of the ADD probably had a lot to contribute to that. One thing I realized I learned more later on was the ADD. I think it's a lot of, he explained it to me one time that he's like, I overthink everything. And so then he's not only overthinking, but he's also got like 10 different things he's thinking about at once, and overthinking every single thing. And then he can't clear his mind. So that I think probably played a lot of part in his mental health. And at one point when he turned to self-harm, that was probably like when I collapsed, because I was like, what am I doing wrong? What am I not doing? And trying to help all three of my children for different reasons, and feeling like I was just like, I don't even know what to do. And I know there were times where I would just, I probably would even like block certain things out. My older son I always tried to keep an open communication with him, and always told him like, just come talk to me. And so we would have one-on-ones, just me and him, and he would talk to me about certain things, and we'd both cry, and I did what I could to try to help him, but it was almost like that didn't even help him. And so then I'm like, what else am I to do? We tried counseling. He went once and then refused to go again. And, so it was, I think I would almost feel like I was always looking for a scar.
Yeah.
But then when I saw a scar, I didn't know what to do. And so it was like, if I knew it was there, then I would just like not, I don't know if it was like pretend it wasn't there. I knew it was there, right? But it was just, I was like, well, if I talk about it, it's going to make it worse, or, and I tried that at times, and, it was a mess, and I don't even know how we got through it.
How is
But,
he today?
he's good. He
Okay.
actually, like, he just recently moved out and got his own place. He said he really wanted to just be on his own. And I think the pressure of there's a 12-year gap between him and his brother, and then a 14-year gap between him and his sister. So I think he felt like he's raising children. And he was like, I need to do me, and I want to be on my own. So he moved out and got his own place. He's got a little apartment, and he's just working, and he actually works at the same place I do, so I get to see him a lot. So
That's good. I know that makes you really happy. You can.
Yes. I still worry, but he's been, I know, self-harm free for over a year. So it makes my heart warm knowing that he's in a better mental place now, and I think he worked through a lot of his problems himself, and so he definitely, he's definitely better. And my middle son, with his sensory processing disorder, I feel like over time he kind of I don't know if you say outgrew, but a lot of the things, he did do occupational therapy with his sister.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, when we first saw it, the doctor was like, have him go to OT and that should help. So him and his sister were both going to the same center for a short period of time. And then insurance changed, and so we had to stop going there. But that short amount of time that he did do there did help him. And I think once he worked through even like his car sickness stuff that he had, we kind of got to a better place where he got used to it. So there's still times where sometimes we going up an escalator and he's like, hold my hand, it's like that. It's crazy, but loud sounds aren't really a problem for him anymore either. So it makes it a lot easier to manage because, he's so smart. And so I think sometimes now our struggles are that he just likes to argue because he knows everything, So, and unfortunately, sometimes he knows more than me. So he wins in that sometimes,
They sound amazing. Do you see a big crossover with sensory processing disorder and autism?
Yeah. It's funny because the issues that my son has with like loud sounds, and he sometimes will have problems with certain like clothing items too, where he's like, but he knows how to express it, so he can tell me like, Mom, this tag is bothering me, or I don't like this, or, so I feel like it's a little different for him. But like his issues, some of his issues are my daughter is completely fine with. Like, we can go to a loud concert and she has no issues because she loves music. And so she's like, give me all the music. And he's better at it now, but when he was younger, it was hard for him. So he was actually the one wearing the noise canceling headphones and not her, because it was too much for him. But every once in a while, when Mom screams a little too loud or yells, he will, like, because it hurts his ears. But I'm like, you stop frustrating me and I wouldn't have to yell this loud.
Yeah, and I always tell people, like, everything is an autism. Like, it's an umbrella. And it, a lot of times it does sound like, oh, I possibly may have autism, but there are other things up under that umbrella that comes, like the sensory processing. So that's why I wanted you to explain it, because they all kind of correlate.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny that you say that too, because the other day, my daughter's, it was one of her therapists told me, she
Mhm.
was like, well, don't you feel like he has autism possibly, or maybe there's, because I told her that he started reading when he was 2.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, that's really early. And I was like, well, yeah, but I don't feel like he has autism. His, they're, all of his things are, kind of, they fall under sensory processing. And he's just extremely smart. He
Yeah,
tested um, for gait. I don't know if they have that there, but here
we do
it's,
have that here.
yeah, so he tested for gait, so he's going to be in gait next year because
Okay.
he's so smart. So I'm super proud of him because he helps me a lot with his sister too, and that makes a big deal because they're closer in age, and so I feel like, certain things he's able to help her with, and he was my middle child for a reason.
Well, how do you balance? What does a day for you balance out and taking care of your mental health and your self-care? What does that look like for you?
Well, I feel like I could always do better. Finding the time is definitely hard. It's not even just about, my 3 kids. My oldest moved out, but, it's he's still my kid. But it's my husband. It's, my work, because I work full time.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, I had to remember what it was that I loved to do before kids, right? Because I'm like, my life just involves whatever I do, it's with my kids. And so I had to remember, like, what did you love before kids? And so I always loved to write, I always loved to draw. And so those are 2 things that I've decided to take time to do, but I'm not just doing them just to do them. I'm also putting a purpose behind them. I need to be able to help other moms, whether that be with moms who are struggling with the autism world, or, even with mental health, all of that. I just wanted to know that I'm taking that time for myself to help me, but also it's a way that I can put it to a purpose to help other moms too. So I don't know that I really call it self-care, but kind of, but it does, that any time that I have that I do that, whether it be like when I'm laying in bed at night, before I go to sleep, or at work. Sometimes if we have a slow time at work, then I can have a moment to, do that as well, and take the time to me. Because sometimes when I'm home, there's no
No
time.
time.
So it's like, I'm lucky to have a job where if we are slow, then, I can take a moment. And it's, when we're busy, I don't. But when I have a moment, when we are slow, it's my time for me. And I do still always take care of, like, I'm a massage therapist, so I make sure I
Okay.
get monthly massages. And so I always take that time for me. Sometimes she has to come to my house and my kids are rubbing my feet while she's rubbing my back, but I don't care, because it's much needed. So I do. One of my goals is to actually get back into working out, and even like yoga, because I know how much it would benefit me. I'm a massage therapist, so I know all of this. I just don't. I don't practice what I preach. So that is one of my goals that I want to get better at. But I feel like as time has gone on and we've learned my daughter and we've learned her personality, and
Uh-huh.
even, certain things that, like, helping her with like her communication and all of that, I feel like those have all made our lives a little easier and a little less stressful. So with that being said, I feel like I'm not always in like crisis mode like I was in the past.
Yeah.
So I feel like back then I probably needed more time for myself, and I wish that I would have given myself that then, instead of just trying to go all of the time. Being like that, probably, I don't I don't think I ever had a moment where I like completely crashed, because I feel like for me, I, like if you asked me, well, what do you do when you feel like you're out of energy and you have to keep going, or when you, that for me, I just keep going.
Keep
There's,
going.
I just push through and I keep going, because if I give up, who's going to help me? No one's there. No one else is going to do it. So I need to be the one to keep pushing. So as silly as it sounds, it's like, what do I do in burnout mode? I just keep going. And, but I think the moments that I do need for myself are when even like I just have a cry session,
Yeah.
I
And that's
watch my
self
favorite.
care. I
Yeah,
tell people
for sure.
crying is self care. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I can say that I don't cry as much as I used to. And so I'm like, okay, I must be a little stronger. But if I watch a good episode of my Grey's Anatomy, that definitely helps really get the tears flowing.
tears.
So and sometimes that's all I need. I'll ask my husband, come on, let's watch let's watch a sad movie. And he's like, no. Absolutely not. He's like, you could watch that by yourself. So I'll watch my little crying session movies, or my episodes whenever I get a chance, and I feel like that hits the reset button for me.
Yeah.
So,
And that is self-care. I always tell, I feel better after I cried. And I'm a crybaby. Like I have, like you say, I have gotten way better when it comes to crying, but because before it was every night in the shower and nobody knew. But now it's like, I don't care who knows. If I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna cry right then and there, like on the phone, talking about the situation. And I tell people all the time, that's self-care to me. To me, it is.
For sure. It is. It doesn't matter even what it's about. I could feel like I'm crying over nothing, but I know there's something deep down like
that I'm crying about.
And it's needed, and that's okay. That's the way to release it,
So you mentioned sleep was a big topic and was very important to you. What were some of the biggest challenges as far as getting a sleep routine?
So for my daughter, like from the time she was born, sleep was always an issue, and it was really hard because I was just like, why will this child not sleep? And so before we got her diagnosed, we'd spend so much time like, okay, let's wear her out. Let's keep her up for 18 hours and, surely, she'll sleep. No, that girl would sleep for 2 hours. It was like a little power nap for her. And then she'd be up for like another 16 hours, or, it was ridiculous. And I can remember just feeling so stressed. We got her diagnosed, and I thought, okay, this is why she doesn't sleep, because that was one of the things I read, that they say that, sleep is an issue. So I thought, okay, I called the doctor and I said, what are we going to do about this? And he was like, and he was like, well, have you tried, like routines and like making sure you give her a bath every night and to help her unwind? I said, doctor, this is not working. It's not working. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what, routine we try to keep her on. It's not working. I need your help. I'm dying here. And I knew from her moods and the way she was that like it was affecting her too. Yeah. And so he said, okay, well, let's try melatonin to start with, and we'll try low doses. So we tried melatonin, and I was like, it's not working. She doesn't have a problem falling asleep. At that point, it really wasn't so much. Sometimes it would, because she would just, I don't want to go to sleep right now. But when she was tired, she would fall asleep. It was the staying asleep that she would always wake up. She'd never sleep longer than I think it was like 5-6 hours at a time. And then she would be up either for the day, or if I was lucky, maybe after 3 hours of fighting with her, she'd go back to sleep for another 4 hours, And so we did that a lot, and the melatonin wasn't working. And so then he decided that he agreed to put her on a low dose of clonidine. And so that's actually like a blood pressure medication, but in low doses, he said that they use it for autism and people who struggle with sleep because it helps slow them down to, and like really low dose. I want to say, I don't remember exactly, but I feel like it was like 0.1 milligram, something like that, you know? And so she would, I remember it was the first week, like he wanted to start her low. And so we did that. And I said, so it helps her fall asleep easier, but I feel like she's still waking up. And so when we upped it to the next dosage was when she was out for 10 hours. And I was like, oh my God, is she okay?
Something works.
Right. And then it was like almost instantly one day she stacked blocks and I was like, oh my God, that's all she needed was sleep. And she stacked the blocks, you know, she was like focused and stacked the blocks like I asked her to. And so she was on that medication, I want to say for like a year, and it helped tremendously. And she would finally sleep through the night. And it was like a game changer for us because we all finally got sleep. We were all a little, that was probably part of my, you know, screaming days and, you know, it's not being able to keep myself together. But once she started sleeping, then that was it. And then when she got off the medication, she transitioned well. And I think it was because she was in pre-K. And so she had all that sensory input that she needed from going to school and, you know, all the work that she was doing. And, you know, I was worried that when she stopped the medication, she wasn't going to sleep, but she did. And then there was times that we still, every once in a while, she'll wake up in the middle of the night and be up for a few hours. But now she at least doesn't cry. She'll stay in her room and she'll play with her toys. And then eventually she might go back to sleep, or she might just be up until mom finally comes to get her. You know, she'll just play until I come get her. And then it's okay. I'm like, you are going to be tired tonight, girl, but we gotta go. We gotta go to ABA now. So yeah, so that's hard.
The sleeping thing is off and on for us. It's not he won't stay asleep, it's when he falls asleep. It's our issue. So but I always can tell, like at ABA, they tell me, oh, he's had a great day. And I'm like, yeah, because he went to bed at like 8:00 last night versus the bad day.
Right. So, versus midnight, right?
Yes. So I completely get the stacking the blocks because she was well rested.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So let's talk about, you know, you helping moms with your writing and your books. What inspired you to like become a writer?
So I think when I started listening to podcasts and even hearing about all the moms who have, you know, either written their story to help other moms or just listening to podcasts like yours and others that I like to listen to, it showed me that, you know, the more we share our story, the more it can help everyone, like not just other autistic families, but everybody in the world, right? So that people can hear, you know, what's not talked about. And so that kind of started it for me. And I was able to start writing some blogs, and then the journey that I went through during my son's struggles, my older son with his mental health, and that being a time when I did a lot of my writing, because that was probably the most emotional part for me during his struggles. So doing all my writing then, and then even writing about different like situations with my daughter and being in the moment and just writing about it, I decided that was kind of like where I needed to, like I said before, put it to a purpose and give something for other moms, you know. And then the fun part of it, that, you know, like the artistic side of me that I love to draw and, you know, be creative as far as that goes. And, you know, that inspiring me to do more as far as like maybe like with more of the children's books and
Yeah.
helping the kids to, not feel alone as well. So that kind of started where I was like, I think even just like I said, hearing the moms that and buying their books and seeing all that they've done and realizing it is doable was kind of what pushed me to be like, I can do this,
Yeah.
So never did I think I was ever going to write anything or, be on the internet blogging or any of that, but it just kind of pushed me to be like, this was part of my purpose, was to be able to use my writing, to help other people. So.
And that's what I always say. I'm like, the babies really make us come out of our shell and do things that we never thought that we would do. I would never have thought that, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast and talk to other moms because I get nervous with new people. Like I'm comfortable with people that I know, but new people I get really nervous around. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say this. But I get really nervous, but I realize my son has brought out a big purpose and to share our stories because I hate to hear people say that they're alone or they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I hate people that don't have a support. I don't hate people, but I hate the fact that they don't have a support system because I have a great, support system. So I felt like that was a way for me to give back, to provide support and give other moms that are open to sharing their stories, like you, to be able to share. So,
yeah, not feeling alone, like you said, giving them something to turn to, definitely. Yeah.
And what is one of your biggest goals that you have when it comes to inspiring other moms, giving us hope, things like that?
Yeah. So one of the books, I don't want to give too much because I want it to kind of be a surprise, but one of my creations that I'm working on is having some shorter stories from different moms of different situations we've gone through, to be able to put it together in a shorter version, because I know how time management can be tough for us and we don't have time for anything, right? And so I wanted something for moms to be able to turn to be able to pick up quickly and read a short story but have an inspiration behind it, and almost like a daily affirmation kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's one of my creations that I'm working on. The other thing was with my children's books. I have one right now. I'm publishing it, so I'm hoping to be done soon. It's the book is done. My illustrations and everything are done, but it's just getting it. Publishing. I was like, this is harder than I thought. But I think once I get this one done, the others will come smoothly. But the children's book, I loved writing poems. And so poems was always my thing. I would write poems and like my husband's cards, or, I'd always just write a poem. And I could do it like, if I sat down and said, I'm going to write a poem to my husband today, I would get it done and I would write it right away and give it to him. So the children's books are more like poem style because that's like me. And so I wanted kids to be able to, not feel alone, but also other kids who aren't autistic just to understand, like from my daughter's true real life story that she goes through, like what her day is like and what it, so that others can understand. So.
Yes. And that the first book sounds amazing with the short stories of different moms. And I would love to be a part of that. I would share my story
I was going to ask you, after this, I was going to say, do you want to have a part of my book? Because, I want like different, my idea is different situations, different struggles, right? And, to be able to put them together so that it,
I would love to give you my story so you can have that and share
love
that.
Okay. I'll send you the form once it's all ready.
Okay, perfect. What advice would you give moms that are on this journey, don't know what to do, want to give up? What advice would you give to them?
Well, first of all, don't give up, because who else is gonna do it? That's just like I said, I never give up. I just keep pushing. Um, the other thing that I would say is don't, how do I say this? We always want to stress about when we find out the diagnosis, like what our kid is not going to do, what they are or aren't going to do, what, worrying about, is my daughter going to get married? Worrying about, is my daughter going to live with me for the rest of her life? We don't know, right? And so what is the point of stressing about it in the beginning when you don't even know what I mean, I never knew if my older son was ever going to move out, and so I didn't know how he was going to do in school. And we focus on that future so much, and worrying about all of those things that of course it's going to happen, right? Of course it's like just aren't natural to us, but when you can, try to stop and focus on the moment. And one of my mottos that I've always used is hear what isn't said. It's kind of something I just came up with on my own, because when my daughter was nonverbal, I would tell my husband, he'd get so frustrated at times, and I would have to stop him, and I would say, like, we have to figure out what she's trying to tell us, what she's trying to say. You need to hear what's not being said. And even now with her language, there's still times where she might be saying something, but I'm like, no, like there's something else going on, It's just a matter of like listening in the moment, because when you're focused on what they really need, what they need you for at that moment, whatever it is, whether they need you to, take them to speech because that's the focus of the day, whether they're, crying because something's hurting them, whatever the situation, whatever it is, at all times, just focusing on that moment, because we all know life's too short, first of all. Second of all, we don't know what our future is going to look like. We just know we got to prepare every day and do every day what we can to help them, and that hearing what isn't said is what can kind of bring you back to that, like, okay, what do I need to do right now so that we can get to the future? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfectly good sense. Hearing what you said, like, yeah, hearing what they said.
Yeah, hear what isn't said, basically.
Hear what isn't said.
Yeah.
Y'all hear that? Hear what isn't said. Because that's what we do all the time. Like, we have to hear and understand what our babies are trying to tell us without, like, my intuition now is like on 10 because of Aiden, because I have to play a guessing game and figure it out. So it's like after you do that so long, it's like that intuition of when he's walking to the kitchen, I know, what it is. So thank you. And what is your confession as an autism mom?
I had to think about this one for a while. I was like, what would my confession be? Honestly, it's that I haven't always been as patient as I am now. And honestly, I'm still not the most patient. I still might yell, I still might scream, but I have learned to become more aware of it, to stop myself, right? And to like, okay, calm yourself, but I think, the patience, I've had people tell me, oh my gosh, you're so patient with her. I'm like, no, not really. It might just look like that right now, because I know how to deal with this situation, but there might be another situation that is new to me or that we're struggling with, and I'm not as patient as, it might seem. But I've learned to know that that's okay. We're all struggling, we're all learning, we're all working through it. So even though I may have my moments, it's okay, right?
It has been a pleasure talking to you this evening, Susie. Let everybody know, the listeners know where they can follow you at on social media.
Yes, so I have an Instagram. My daughter's name is Saya. I don't even know if I said that earlier, if I said her name. Saya is her name, so a lot of people don't know how to pronounce her name. It's spelled Saya. So I made the Instagram with her name in it, so it's just Say Autism. So it has her name in the beginning, but Say Autism is my Instagram, and eventually I'll have my website with sayautism.com because I've already paid for it. I just don't have it up yet, but I bought the domain so no one could take it from me. But Say Autism for Instagram. That's pretty much all I have right now. When I do launch my books, they'll be there on my Instagram page. So yes,
And
people
of
can
course,
follow me.
I will be pushing it out and reposting it and letting you all know when her books drop. Thank you so much for sharing. Also, y'all, I'm gonna put her Instagram tag in the comment, well, in the description box, so you can just click it and follow her once it's up. So thank you again for joining us. It is very entertaining, a great talk. Thank you for being open and very transparent about your story with all three of your kids. It's greatly appreciated because we need transparency so people can understand like everything ain't easy. Like we go through it and we all have different stories. So thank you so much for sharing. And you all make sure you like this video. Make sure you all share if you're on Spotify and make sure you follow Susie on her platform. So that's it for us and we will see y'all next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.